Imagine being one of the very first Christians, living in the days right after Christ's resurrection, when the church was only a small community under constant threat. In this fragile, dangerous beginning, a man named Philip emerged, not an apostle, but a humble deacon who carried the gospel across deserts, into foreign cities, and even into the courts of kings. His story is one of bold faith, miraculous encounters, and unstoppable missionary zeal. Today, we uncover the life of Saint Philip the Deacon, one of the forgotten heroes who helped shape the early church. In the book of Acts, as the number of Christians grew in Jerusalem, the apostles faced a problem. Widows of the Hellenistic or Greek-speaking community were being neglected in the daily distribution of food. The apostles decided to appoint 7 men of good repute, full of the Spirit and wisdom, to serve as deacons. Among them was Philip. This wasn't just about food. It was about unity, justice, and ensuring the church lived out Christ's command to care for the poor. Philip, chosen as one of the 7, immediately showed a heart for service and a burning zeal for spreading the gospel. When persecution broke out in Jerusalem after the martyrdom of St. Stephen, many Christians fled. Philip did not hide. He went north into Samaria. Preaching boldly, he proclaimed Christ to people who were long divided from the Jews. Miracles accompanied his words. The sick were healed, unclean spirits fled, and the people rejoiced. It was here that Simon the magician tried to buy the power of the Holy Spirit, an event that gave us the word simony. Philip stood firm, showing that the gift of God could never be bought or sold. But perhaps Philip's most famous encounter came on a desert road. An angel of the Lord sent him to meet a high-ranking Ethiopian official, a eunuch traveling home after worshiping in Jerusalem. The man was reading the scroll of Isaiah, but could not understand it. Philip asked, "Do you understand what you're reading?" When the eunuch replied, "How can I, unless someone guides me?" Philip explained how the prophecies pointed to Jesus Christ. Moved by faith, the eunuch requested baptism. By a stream of water in the desert, Philip baptized him, the first recorded African convert to Christianity. Immediately after, the Spirit of the Lord carried Philip away, a sign of divine mission, as the Ethiopian continued on his journey rejoicing. Philip continued his mission, traveling up the Mediterranean coast to Caesarea. There, he settled with his family and became known as Philip the Evangelist. The Acts of the Apostles tells us that he had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied, women gifted by the Spirit, a remarkable sign of the early church's vitality. When the Apostle Paul traveled through Caesarea years later, he stayed in Philip's home. Imagine it, 2 giants of the early church, Paul and Philip, under one roof, united by the same spirit of mission. Though the New Testament does not record Philip's death, tradition honors him as one of the great missionaries of the 1st century. Unlike Philip the Apostle, Philip the Deacon is remembered especially for breaking boundaries between Jew and Samaritan, between Jerusalem and Ethiopia, between the apostolic generation and the generations that followed. He reminds us that the gospel cannot be contained by borders, cultures, or human divisions. Wherever the Spirit sends, the disciple must go. Saint Philip the Deacon shows us that the Christian mission is not just for apostles, bishops, or priests, but for every believer filled with the Spirit. His courage, service, and missionary zeal still inspire us today to carry Christ into the world's deserts, cities, and homes. So the next time you hear the gospel proclaimed, remember the deacon who first carried it across boundaries and baptized nations. Saint Philip the Deacon, servant, evangelist, and hero of the early church.
In an age of turmoil and reform, when Europe trembled under religious wars, and the Catholic Church struggled to heal itself after the Protestant Reformation, a single man stood out as a shepherd, a reformer, and a saint. His name was Alexander Sauli, the Apostle of Corsica, and the Holy Bishop of Pavia. Today, we uncover the story of a scholar-turned-bishop who transformed both lands and hearts, leaving behind a legacy of holiness and renewal. Alexander Sauli was born in 1534 in Milan into a noble and wealthy family. His father, Count Domenico Sauli, and his mother, Countess Violante, ensured he received a profound education. From his youth, Alexander showed not only brilliance in studies, but also a deep devotion to God. Instead of pursuing the privileges of nobility, he sought a life of humility and service. He entered the Clerics Regular of St. Paul, known as the Barnabites, a new order dedicated to reform, catechesis, and holiness. Alexander embraced the strict life of the order, and soon his wisdom and sanctity made him stand out. By just 27 years old, he was elected Superior General of the Barnabites, a remarkable responsibility for someone so young. In 1567, Pope Pius V sent him on one of the most difficult missions of the Church, the island of Corsica. At that time, Corsica was torn by feuds, violence, and ignorance of the faith. Priests were scarce, churches were abandoned, and the people were often left without catechesis or sacraments. As the new bishop of Illyria, Alexander faced a monumental task. Many bishops before him had failed to restore the church in Corsica, but Sauli approached it with humility and zeal. He lived in simplicity, walking among the people, teaching catechism, reforming clergy, and visiting the most remote mountain villages. His tireless work earned him the title Apostle of Corsica, because he brought life back to a diocese long abandoned. Even amid poverty and danger, he restored faith, rebuilt parishes, and strengthened the moral life of his flock. Despite his missionary work, Alexander Sauli remained a brilliant scholar and theologian. He advised the great Saint Charles Borromeo, Archbishop of Milan and leader of Catholic reform. Sauli's theological writings and wise counsel influenced decisions during the Counter-Reformation, ensuring that the reforms of the Council of Trent were applied faithfully and effectively. He was not only a man of prayer, but also of action, balancing intellectual depth with pastoral care. His reputation spread across Italy, and he became a model bishop in a time when the Church desperately needed shepherds of integrity and holiness. In 1591, Pope Gregory XIV transferred Alexander Sauli to Pavia, an historic and prestigious diocese in northern Italy. Though saddened to leave Corsica, where he was beloved, Sauli obeyed with humility. In Pavia, he continued his mission of reform, revitalizing seminaries, training clergy, and guiding the faithful through difficult times. During his time in Pavia, famine and plague struck the city. Bishop Sauli became a father to the poor, using his own resources to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, and comfort the dying. His episcopate was marked by deep charity and tireless pastoral care. In 1592, while visiting the small town of Colosso to carry out pastoral duties, Bishop Sauli fell ill. On October 11, 1592, after receiving the sacraments, he peacefully gave his soul to God. He was only 58 years old, but his life had left an indelible mark on both Corsica and Pavia. Alexander Sauli's sanctity was recognized quickly. In 1741, Pope Benedict XIV beatified him, and later, in 1904, Pope Pius X canonized him as a saint. Today he is remembered as a true shepherd, a man who brought light to abandoned lands, wisdom to reforming leaders, and charity to the suffering poor. His title as the Apostle of Corsica remains a testament to his missionary heart, while his legacy as Bishop of Pavia continues to inspire bishops, priests, and all Christians to live with courage and holiness. Saint Alexander Sauli teaches us that true reform begins not with power, but with humility, prayer, and service. His story still speaks to us today, reminding us that holiness can transform nations, one soul at a time. Saint Alexander Sauli, pray for us.
When Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli was elected Pope in 1958, the world expected an elderly caretaker, someone to quietly preserve traditions until the next generation took over. What no one expected was that this gentle, humble man would change the course of Catholic history. He called a council that shook the Church to its very foundations, opened its windows to the modern world, and earned the name the Good Pope. This is the story of Saint John XXIII. Angelo Roncalli was born on November 25, 1881, in the small village of Sotto il Monte, Italy. He was the fourth of 13 children in a humble farming family. Poverty marked his childhood, but so did faith. From an early age, Angelo showed a deep love for prayer and learning. At the age of 11, he entered the seminary. His family sacrificed dearly, but they believed in his vocation. He was ordained a priest in 1904, not as a rising star or careerist, but as a man rooted in humility. But his path to the papacy would not be straight. War, diplomacy, and unexpected turns would shape him into the man who would one day surprise the entire world. During World War I, Father Roncalli served as a stretcher-bearer and military chaplain. He saw firsthand the horrors of war, the suffering of soldiers, the fragility of life. These experiences gave him a lifelong passion for peace. After the war, Roncalli became a skilled diplomat of the Holy See. He served as apostolic visitor in Bulgaria, then in Turkey and Greece. During World War II, he risked everything to help Jews escape the Holocaust, issuing thousands of transit visas and baptismal certificates to save lives. His kindness and courage would later be recognized by Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. Little did the world know that this quiet diplomat was storing up lessons that would one day reshape the Church itself. In 1953, Roncalli was appointed Patriarch of Venice and made a cardinal. He loved the people deeply, walking among them, listening to their struggles. He believed that the Church should not be distant, but close, like a shepherd among his flock. His warmth and simplicity won hearts, but still few imagined that this aging cardinal, nearly 77 years old, would soon become Pope. After the death of Pius XII in 1958, the cardinals elected Roncalli as a compromise candidate. Many assumed he would be a transitional pope, ruling quietly for a few years. Instead, he stunned the world. Taking the name John XXIII, he stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and greeted the people not with cold formality, but with a father's heart. His voice was warm, his smile genuine. He became instantly known as Il Papa Buono, the Good Pope. Only 3 months after his election, John XXIII announced something no one expected: an ecumenical council. The Second Vatican Council, Vatican II, would bring together bishops from around the world not to condemn, but to renew. He wanted the Church to open the windows and let in fresh air. Vatican II addressed how the Church related to modern society, other religions, and even the role of the laity. It was a revolution of dialogue, mercy, and openness. And though John XXIII would not live to see its conclusion, his vision set it all in motion.
But behind the warm smile and courageous reforms, John carried a hidden cross, one that would soon end his earthly journey. In 1963, as Vatican II was underway, Pope John was diagnosed with stomach cancer. He bore his suffering with serenity. On June 3, 1963, after just 4.5 years as Pope, he passed away. The world mourned. Catholics and non-Catholics alike wept for the man who had brought joy, simplicity, and hope to the papacy. John XXIII's legacy endures. His vision of a church of mercy, openness, and peace continues to inspire. In 2014, Pope Francis canonized him as a saint, affirming that his goodness was not just political skill, but true holiness. He was supposed to be a caretaker pope. Instead, he became a bridge builder, a reformer, and a saint. The good pope, Saint John XXIII, reminds us that humility, courage, and love can change the world.